Hello and welcome to the Clashing of Steel. And today I'm going to show you tactical thinking. Mostly it's just based on my units and how I view the situation, what type of action can save us and what type of action would kill us. So the first game is with Vercingetorix. I'm using the swordsman and I'm using the forest to cover my units. The idea here is not to push too far from your support. You don't want to be in the middle of the forest or nearly at the opponent's base. You want to be available to help your team, and you want your team to be available to help you. So in perfect harmony, you will try to move with your allied troops. You don't want to push too ahead and you don't want to stay too far behind. As you can see, two of my units are a bit forward and one is in the rear. The rear one is to cover any flanking attempts. Although I'm playing Vercingetorix, who doesn't get routed that easily, it is still quite a lot of damage if a flanking succeeds. So here are the spears taking the front, so I'm covering their rear, or at least trying to. The opponents have tier 7 spears or spearmen, and actually they will beat the tier 5s any game. So I can understand this player running away. Although I could support him with the scorched earth, he would still most likely suffer heavy casualties. Now you saw another problem, there are archers. We don't have any range units here, so that's a bit bad for us. But fortunately, you can see those flaxmen back there. They are making a not so wise decision and advancing. Since I actually don't want to fight the spears and those flaxmen in a single line, I throw up a fire in front of them, well, a bit inside them as you see. So he retreats back. Now we can retreat as well, and since those flaxmen are advancing quite heavily, we are having a really good chance against them. Spearmen don't want to come to their aid, and we have time right now to take care of them. So I'm throwing up a scorched earth to deal them a lot more damage, because I have only one unit engaged back there. I'm also trying to keep 2 units alive, just in case. And the lucky cavalry comes in with the charge, and a little bit of flanking support as well. So these opponents are destroyed. They made a bad decision of charging in forward. I don't blame the spears, because the spears were trying to defend the ranged units. Although they are engaging right now, after my scorched earth is over, it isn't the wisest decision. The problem is that they lost an allied player, and now they are a bit outnumbered. Although they have ranged units, they don't have enough melee units to sustain their single line. The barbarians are going around them. They can't support their slingers. They have to cover their own sides. Although they are trying to advance, not the best of tactics. We can outstretch them, we can outplay them actually here. So my scorched earth actually made quite a bit of difference. Not just here damaging them, but in the beginning as well, where I put it up and they just didn't want to advance anymore. Actually, the trick with Vercingetorix is to put up the fire as close to you as possible if you think that the enemy is going to charge. Perhaps sometimes even a bit under yourself, seeing as the enemy might push you a bit back when he charges into you. Right now you can see all of my 3 units fighting these spearmen. I'm using the scorched earth to my advantage, and I should probably advance a bit into my scorched earth to hold them a bit deeper in there. Although there were stronger enemies in the forest, they are both pretty much done. The flaxmen made a dumb move and they left their spears alone practically. The slingers couldn't support anyone because they were chased away. So now my team has moved around to opponents and are brave enough to flank, or have been brave enough to flank them. Although these tier higher spears are almost dead, I was the only one to engage them and give my teammates a chance to flank them. So my task is pretty much done here. I killed a lot of opponents, I made sure that the enemy could not advance anymore, and I did decent damage with holding them in place under the scorched earth. So this was how I use Vercingetorix. I'm gonna show you how I play 2 different commanders as well. So now do Commander Sulla or Sulla. You can see right away that our war dogs are leaving us here. So since the cavalry is here, I'm actually trying and support him, because I don't want to leave him alone, just to be safe. If there are 2 opponents, we might as well do it. But the problem is that there are 3 opponents. You can see the swordsmen, the flaxmen, and even the archers. I can't fight against those melee, and I don't have a lot of archer defense. So the first choice is to retreat from this position. Apparently we can't hold it, so we might as well let them take it. Although we expose our site, there is a higher chance that when we regroup with our teammates that we can hold them off. So my second decision is to go and support our catapult, or at least defend the areas around him. There's a lot of empty space in between, so I'm gonna skip a bit. I do not want to defend in front of the stakes, because if my units get routed, they might run into the stakes. Actually, I'm having sort of a predicament. I can't force all my units back here as well, because if the enemy is coming, which they are, if I'm back here with everyone else, the catapults will most likely die. There's actually another situation rising. You can see those warhounds. They are guiding those barbarians back there. If they are retreating up in the forest, I should probably support them, seeing as I have proscription and one of the best defense. But unfortunately they are flaxmen, so my shields will be somewhat useless. But since they are engaging, I'm afraid I won't make it to their defense. And since they're trying to advance a bit as well, it isn't wise for me to try and reach out with him. Another thing is that I see that those warhounds are lost. I actually think that these swordsmen here are lost as well, but they managed to bring it around rather well. Actually here I somewhat panic and pull back. I'm not sure what the opponent is thinking or what they're planning of doing. Fortunately, the archers are defended by the stakes and a few units up in front of there. Some may say that I should have gone to help those warhounds, but you can see those troops massing back there. It might have not changed a lot. One of my main focuses is not to reach out too far, like those warhounds did. Although I do not support Germanicus' idea of advancing that heavily, I have actually made myself an interesting situation here. No opponents can see me. I am behind a rock. There are archers and catapults. You can see the flaxmen coming for them. You can also see the swordsmen and the riders spreading out. If the riders and swordsmen with the flaxmen would have advanced on this position, I couldn't have held it. Here is where they mess up. Here is where I have my chance. Although the flaxmen destroy the stakes, the archers are slightly running backwards, and I can block this main tight bottleneck area here. They cannot bypass me, and they're marching in a huge group of 3 units. So archers still got a bit of caught between us and the barbarians, but now at least I can fight against them. This is the biggest mistakes most players do. Even in this bottleneck area, it isn't suggested, but he can actually swarm me and mass around me. As you can see, some of his troops are like pushing through around, but since one of my units is holding against all 3, I can send them to cover my rear. I don't want to send all my units in as well, because you may never know when archers or slingers need support. So these guys are rather defeated. They try to charge. I actually take some friendly fire, I think. Not too much, because they are focusing the archers back there with the slingers. If these flaxmen would have gone to support their swordsmen that are losing back there, they might have had a really good chance against those armored legionnaires. But because they came here to fight me in a bottleneck area, I won. Bottleneck areas are good to hold back overwhelming foes. Damn, that guy was good with dodging that barrage. Although he got a bit scratched, he dodged most of it. So now you see these guys are rather destroyed. They all forced themselves on me. Even that the flaxman ignored the shield stat, it didn't mean a lot. So now all the opponents that came from the west, from the location I retreated, are rather defeated. There are ranged units left, but no support from the melee, because all the melee is pretty much defeated. There is some cavalry as well, but they won't make much of a difference. Okay, let's take a look at the Scipio Africanus as well. So with Scipio I'm trying to spread. I also don't want to get into a situation I can't get out of. For example, there are the war dogs. Although I can do something against them, I feel that it is not the wisest course to be the main target of the war dogs. And this was another reason, I guess. With cavalry it's probably one of the hardest to make good decisions. Your decisions have to be heavily based on your team. If you want to support them, if you want to help them, how are they making it available for you to help them? It just isn't all around you, you just don't need to wait for the right moment. If your team can cooperate with you, they can create you that moment that you can use. As you can see in the areas that I might have conflict, I try to move one unit ahead of the others. This is because I don't want all of my units to get charged by unknown enemies that I haven't yet found. That way only one unit will get charged. So I'm actually having a problem here. The swordsmen don't want to take the tower. If they would have taken the tower, I could have probably seen a possibility to advance, because most of the opponents were disengaging. Since they aren't taking the watchtower, I'm just trying to make sure that the forest is clear for the archers back there. They are hiding in the bushes, and as you can see, all the opponents are retreating. Or actually, they have already retreated, so if I would have seen it earlier, I could have been sure that there was nothing waiting for me in the bushes in the forests up ahead. I could have probably chased down the last retreating units. Perhaps not fatally, but I could have done some damage and harassed them a bit. Since those enemies have retreated, I'm going to try and support my teammates in town. There are archers and some of my teammates are routing. So, fortunately, or perhaps even unfortunately, these swordsmen are blocking my way. I could have hunted down the archers a bit more faster. Near the Colosseum we have already lost, so I need to be very wise what to do with my units back here, because there are some spears and pikemen. Fortunately, I get a drop on these archers, I do a little damage. I'm actually coming from the other side as well. I don't want to always send my units in from a single direction. The archers are escaping and I'm actually having a rather great moment to charge. So another problem arises here, that I'm going to be engaged with melee, so I might as well pop the Oath of Preservance. I'll try to kill as many of the opponents as I can. Mainly, of course, the archers. I actually don't have a chance here. I was somewhat hoping for the swordsmen to engage, but since they retreat and archer fire is coming in for me and for the opponents, I don't see this as a bad move, because there is a bunch of opponents trying to fight me and I'm pretty much lost as well there. Perhaps it wasn't the wisest decision, but I at least got down those groups of archers rather well. And as you can see, the Oath of Preservance paid off. It engaged the pikemen that already disengaged from the fight, and thanks to that they saved my dying unit. This would be actually a great place to support my swordsmen, but as you can see, there are war dogs back there, and I don't want to take a risk where we both get overwhelmed. The other problem is that my team's swordsmen are tier 3 and the opponents are tier 5. There was a small chance that I could have helped those swordsmen, but since they are at tier 3, I really didn't want to take a chance. The problem is that the newbies might mess up, and when he messes up I might die as well. Right now you can see that there is a lot of action going on in this city. I don't want to go into the city myself actually, because the streets can be blocked rather easily. So right now the best thing I can do is support my archers back here. Some archers are already engaged and I'll try to do what I can to save them. Since these riders here are 2 tiers lower, I have a rather great chance against them. If I get them down and my archers survive, we might as well be able to destroy their ranged units and perhaps even their pikemen. So again, a bit forward in time. Most opponents are destroyed and we are holding rather strong. You can finally see that the stakes are even used. At least stakes have been useful. I'm guessing they realized what happened and are retreating. So this is pretty much the final battle. Even if I wouldn't do anything, we would probably still win. Actually, I'm doing a quite interesting thing here. I'm trying to bait out the charge. I go in close and then I retreat. I do it in many occasions to bait out the charge. I do it even with some of my melee units, just to be safe. Thanks to this, I got uninterrupted charge on him, and he couldn't counter-charge me. So this is pretty much how I play tactically, or try to play at least. So the main things I try to do is I try not to reach too far, I try to be in the length of my teammates, I try to be useful. If I'm playing a defensive commander like Sulla or Leonidas, sometimes even Germanicus, I try to support my archers, defend them. I'll never try to push too far, I'll never try to push so far that I might get wrecked. I never follow in other players who think that they could just go in head on and push and push and push. I often try to create the situation or find a situation where I can use my commander properly. For example, the Scipio, I'll try to flank with him. With Vercingetorix, I'll try to burn my opponents and charge in. With Sulla, I try to hold defensive locations like bottleneck areas, between the walls or rocks or something. If I see a situation I cannot win, or some overwhelming numbers, I usually retreat back to my team. That way having a better chance against them. You also saw with the Commander Sulla that I didn't want to leave my cavalry back there alone. If there would have been a real chance against the opponents, I would have stayed there, I would have fought with those cavalry. but unfortunately there were overwhelming numbers and I had to retreat. The main thing to remember is that you don't always have to engage. You can retreat, you can pull back. Even if you are engaged, you see that the opponents are getting a lot more support from the rear, you might as well pull back to your defending units. You might get routed, but you can still command your unit to move in the direction you want. Even some skills can help you disengage. For example, Leonidas' shield bash, you bash the opponent and then you retreat. Or Commander Sulla's whip. Most players have this narrow-minded idea that they should fight till the end. So this is just the basics of my tactical thinking. It might sometimes be a bit too defensive, but I hope that at least it opened your mind a bit. Try to evaluate the situation and be aware of your surroundings. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe and thanks for watching.